The South African Banking Risk Information Centre is reporting an increase in financial crimes. Now, these range from cash-in-transit heists to online banking fraud. The report also highlighting intensified ATM bombings last year. Now, to unpack this, I'm joined by Sabric CEO, Nischal Mewalalla. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think, maybe let's start with fraud, especially when it comes to our banking apps, which is something that, touches so many South Africans. How do we, make sure that something like this takes center stage and it is something that doesn't happen regularly, because we do see these cases so often?
Yeah. Good morning to you and good morning to the viewers as well. And thanks for having me on the show. So, key to understanding how to prevent things like this is having an understanding about the matter itself. That's why every year Sabric releases these crime stats, and we use these stats to speak to the people in South Africa about the types of dangers they face and the banking industry faces when it comes to financial crime, in particular banking crime. So this report has lots of numbers. It's used by all kinds of individuals. But more importantly, why the statistics are important this time around is that it coincides with South Africa's grey listing. Now, as you know, part of the grey listing has got to do with our controls dealing with the money laundering in the Republic. And so what the data indicates is that there's substantial financial losses associated to different types of financial crimes. And these losses, and we'll discuss this even as we speak about the ATMs, these losses can be seen as a key indicator of potential money laundering activities in South Africa. But there are two key takeaways that the viewers need to understand. One is that crime has evolved over the last 20, 30 years, and it has become highly organized and extremely complex to manage, and in the way they are intersecting and connecting. And the second aspect is absolutely clear from the numbers we'll speak now. Crime pays handsomely in South Africa, and the rewards far outstrip the risks. And we are already seeing the fact that we're losing billions from the formal and informal sector to the illicit economy itself.
Now, let's talk about the ATMs, the ATM bombings last year. We've seen an increase there as well. And my concern is also now, when it comes to the festive season, we also see, crimes like these on the increase. So are we expecting more things like this happening just because of the festive season around the corner? And what can you tell us about these ATM bombings and how are they being dealt with or could be dealt with?
So look, when we look at ATMs, overall, Gauteng is the epicenter of most of the ATM attacks that are occurring in South Africa. Last year, the numbers showed that there were more than 441 incidents. Now, think about that. That's more than one incident a day. And in total, these incidents generated proceeds or money that has been taken by these criminals in excess of 45 million rands. So certainly, ATM bombings is a very lucrative business. We've noticed that there is certainly a shift in, once the police become highly successful in dealing with CIT syndicates, the modus changes and then they move towards bombing ATMs themselves. And then once that area receives attention, there's a swing in the opposite direction. Certainly, as we see the numbers, as you go into the festive season, these incidents become more prevalent. And I must point out that what has become a concerning issue is that, ATMs generally deploy die-stain technology. It spoils the cash so that you can't reintegrate this cash into the payment system. But what we've noticed is that these perpetrators are now holding on to this cash. Even if the cash is die-stained, they still opt to be in possession of this. And that's a big risk in itself. But there's got to be a reason why they're choosing to keep this cash. The second aspect has got to be a switch in the way and how organized it is when they orchestrate these events. Because they even go to the extent of kidnapping the security teams that are on site and even purport to be members of the security teams as they call in all is in order or as they engage with the police services. So this space is highly organized and something more sophisticated is going on at the back of things.
Let's talk about phishing. That's also another problem that happens regularly here in South Africa. I think, we all know someone who's fallen victim to someone pretending to be a bank official, and, people then lose loads of money because they're being scammed in a way as well. Has that been in the increase, or is that now being dealt with?
Yeah, I think that you spot on there. We can put this into a bucket of what we refer to as digital crimes, right? And the last year, I mean, the numbers showed a significant increase in the number of digital banking fraud incidents. There were more than 16,000 incidents. And these crimes generated more than 363 million rands for fraudsters. Now, that's a staggering number. And that's a massive loss to customers as well as the banks, because in some instances, the banks would have to take some responsibility in what happened. But safe to say that, like you've pointed out, phishing, vishing, and smishing are the three most common practices used by these criminals in order to gain access. So remember, they don't necessarily try and hack the banking app itself and break the technology. It's easier to manipulate humans to give off their information. And if you couple that with incidents like data breaches, and what you put out there in the social media, it's very easy to reconstruct your personal information to be able to access an account or even mislead you. So what we're seeing in the phishing space is that there's a lot of energy and effort put into trying to get you to give off your verification pins or your one-time pins, because these are critical when they are about to execute a fraudulent transaction. And the second one is phishing, like you pointed out. This is where you get a spoof email, or they manipulate information inside an email, or they request you to click a link, and then you divulge your own personal information. I've seen many of these purporting to be emails from a bank or even from a school. That's where they collect to harvest this information. The last one's got to be phishing. This is the SMS. And I think recently many of us, even myself, received these SMSs saying that we need to go in and update our KYC information with the bank. You click the link, you then begin to punch in your details, and there you have it. They harvested all of this information about you. But safe to say that these two types of crimes, specifically online banking and mobile banking, they generate massive amounts of proceeds for criminals.
I think just very lastly and very shortly from your side, Mr. Mewalalla, is, can we, with the society, our society now, becoming more and more technologically advanced, day by day, it seems like this is now also the space now, of course, where criminals are, flocking towards, where we then scam people, and the list continues with the amount of cyber crimes that can take place where people's money get lost or stolen in this case. How do banks then, make sure that, people don't get scammed, our money is safe, and then do you think there's now this necessity, I would want to say, for banks to make sure that as we get more technologically advanced, they need to make sure that the security systems grow even faster, to keep up with what's happening in the world?
Yeah, I think it's a dual responsibility. In fact, there's three parties that need to be responsible here. The first one is, you're correct. Banks have to make sure the security capability on the applications they provide to customers are super strong. And more importantly, behind the scenes, their detection systems must be really advanced in the ability to integrate and use data using AI to be able to generate alerts and point out things so that they can proactively act on it. On the side of the customer, there is a responsibility to educate yourself. You've got to understand what is going on around you. You've just pointed out that we are, yes, a very tech-savvy nation. We use a lot of technology, or we're integrating a lot of technology, but we don't spend a lot of time educating ourselves and our kids and the siblings, or whoever it may be, about how to safely use that technology. So there we have a responsibility, and once you understand that, you can prevent that. The third aspect is the responsibilities sitting with law enforcement agencies. Just recently I read an article saying that the commercial crime divisions of SAPS have only 16% of the capacity they require. And you can imagine, with these number of criminal cases, you certainly have to take action against suspects themselves, because it cannot just be about prevention and detection. You've got to be able to execute investigations and prosecutions. So it's a three-way process of making sure the system and individuals are safe.
All right, thank you so much, CEO, Sabric CEO, Mr. Nischal Mewalalla, of course, joining me this morning just to give us an update on security issues when it comes to your money, of course, being safe, ATM bombings, phishing, the list continues.